Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Sober Spartan podcast. This will be episode 7. So today in this episode, we're going to be talking about the power list and building your own support system. So, what exactly is the power list? We'll be going through that. We'll be talking about how to build out your own power list and some examples of powerless tasks that I think are super useful for sobriety in general, because that's what we're talking about here. And we'll also be talking about support systems. What is a support system and why it's important, and then also how to build out your own. So, the power list, we'll start there. Like, what is it? The power list is a list of tasks that you'll need to complete during your day. So it's not just a list, it's a tool for building habits to help you reach your goals. So um, it's 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 a really good tool to have in your arsenal, especially if you're just getting sober or you've been trying to get sober for a long period of time, but you haven't quite been able to get it to stick just yet. And this is something that I learned from a man. His name's Andy Frisella. He used to have a podcast, the MF CEO Project. That was his old podcast. Now it's the Real AF podcast right now, and he's super good into talking about business, all that type of stuff. And he's the creator of the program 75 Hard, which I might go into detail in another podcast because that's a really powerful program that I've done a couple times myself. So I've found that this power list is one of the best things you can do if you want to build your foundation to be able to create better habits than you've had, especially if you're looking to be sober for a long period of time. Like, because I found, especially when I was just getting sober, I didn't really have any sort of routine or anything like that. I had to kind of figure all that shit out, and it took me a while. And I just think if I would have had something like this in place right from the beginning, I would have been able to not struggle as much as I have. And so doing these tasks daily, you're going to build your discipline and you're going to get momentum going forward. So like if you don't feel like you're motivated to do anything and to continue down this path of sobriety, that's okay. That's normal. Um, you're going to get some momentum once you start getting some wins on the board, completing these tasks. So that's really important because if you just literally don't want to be doing any of this stuff, then it's gonna be hard to succeed going forward. And then also discipline is like a muscle. So if you show up day in, day out, and you're able to consistently complete these tasks that you set out for yourself, then you're just doing yourself all kinds of favors there. And so the best way to build out your power list, what I would do is I would get a physical notebook, something like that, to be able to write everything down. Like you can use digital copies. I do have digital notebooks that I use as well. I think for the power list in general, a physical copy would be good to have. And then you can hold it, it'll be in your hand. You can have it on your desk, or like at the end of the day, you can sit down at your table after dinner or something like that, and you can kind of go through and make sure that you completed all the tasks on the list. So there are digital note-taking apps like Evernote, Notion, all that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of apps on your phone, stuff like that. So if you want to do that, that'll also work. But like I said, I like to do the physical copy for stuff like this. I'm using it also a habit tracker for the tasks that I have on a daily basis, and it's called The Four. So that's another good one. But yeah, I would definitely get yourself a notebook dedicated solely to your power list. A physical copy, I think that would be a lot better than a digital one, at least definitely starting out. And so when your day's done, um, you're either going to have a win or you're going to have a lose. So it's either you did all your tasks, which will be a W for a win at the top of your page, or it'll be an L if you missed something for whatever reason. And it's okay. Like when you're first putting this power list together, it's going to feel like a lot. But once you keep showing up day in, day out. And then at the end of the day, you're able to reflect and ask yourself, like, what went well today? And then you can go through and write down what went well. And you can also write down what didn't go so well. And you can figure out how to improve for the next day. So that way you're able to hit all your powerless tasks. Okay. And then this is super important. Don't lie. Like, don't just for the sake of getting the W, don't say, oh, I just did this, or I kind of did it, or this is black and white. It's either you did the task that you told yourself you were going to do, and you're going to do this the night before, or you're going to do this right in the morning, and then you're going to commit to it. So if you didn't get it, that's okay, but make sure you write down that you didn't get it, and then you kind of think through, why wasn't I able to hit this task, right? Because then you'll find a lot of times you're going to try to make excuses to justify why you weren't able to do what you said you were going to do. And there'll be some things that come up in life that are legitimate reasons for not doing anything, but especially, like, I'm just thinking back to when I was first getting sober. Like, I wasn't like, I was still trying to figure stuff out, and like, because as you know, if you're drinking for a long period of time, your brain gets a little bit fuzzy, right? So um you find yourself justifying things and cutting corners and stuff like that. You don't want to do that for this, because every time that you do that, you're going to know that you lied, and that's going to kill your confidence. So this is supposed to be here to help you. This isn't supposed to be something that's going to kind of be counterproductive, right? So just make sure that you're honest to yourself. No one's going to be reading this. You don't have to share this with anyone. But if you got the L, own it, and then figure out what you can do the next day to be able to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Okay, so we'll move on to building your power list. So basically, a couple things to think about when you're looking at building out your power list, and I'll have some examples momentarily here. But you want to have a large overarching goal, and what the power list is, it's good to keep you consistent to working on being able to chunk it down and take manageable bites out of that large goal. And so you want to break it down to daily tasks that you can do that are manageable, because you'll find, like, if you're looking at your big goals, like, even for example, if you think about lasting sobriety and being sober for the rest of your life, that could be overwhelming. And because forever seems like a lot longer and much more harder to wrap your head around than just focusing on the day in front of you. And this is something super common in sobriety. You'll find people getting overwhelmed and overwhelming themselves when they think about something on a long enough time horizon like that. So you got to break things down and make it super simple on the mind, so you're not just like thinking about something you can't even fathom, right? Because especially if you've been drinking for a long time and you haven't had a lot of time of sobriety under your belt, then you're just gonna overwhelm yourself. So the tasks that I'm going to be suggesting here are really valuable for people who want to stay sober for a long period of time. I've had over 10 years of sobriety, and I've had to develop these habits over a long period of time, right? I didn't just roll out of bed, decide I want to get sober, and then all of a sudden have these habits. And I'm assuming you won't too. You're probably going to have some sort of foundation. You'll definitely know about the things I'm going to talk about for the habits that I'm suggesting here. But they're fundamental habits. And I think that if you're able to focus on something and kind of have some sort of structure, especially when trying to get sober, it's gonna be a lot easier for you to stay sober, and you're not gonna keep relapsing and all that kind of stuff. So some of the suggestions that I have here are engaging with the community. So whether that's you going to AA, and we're going to be talking about community right after this, but engaging with AA, unless if you're going on social media platforms, getting around other people who are going down the same journey that you're going down in sobriety, that'll be a good task to have on there. And then it'll be just like a reminder that you're not the only one going through the same thing, and it's okay to feel the way you're feeling about it. The next one will be some breath work. So here, I give an example of the physiological sigh, and that's a really good breath technique for reducing stress. So like when cravings come up, like you're feeling overwhelmed, stuff like that, you're able to do this breath work and kind of reduce that stress on yourself. And what I would recommend is just typing in physiological sigh, just in Google or YouTube or something, and you'll probably see a video come up of Dr. Andrew Huberman, and he does a really good job of explaining this breath technique. And it's like I use this all the time when I get stressed, pissed off, whatever. I take a moment to do this, and then it like centers me, it reduces my stress, and I feel so much better after doing it. So that's another example I have on the list. And then you're going to want to pick a consistent wake up time and sleep time, because when you do this, because I found like I didn't have a consistent bedtime. I would just stay up till all hours of the night. I just wake up whenever I woke up, that kind of thing. And I wouldn't feel my best because like if you don't have your circadian rhythm set, that's like your biological clock for when you wake up and when you go to bed, then it's going to cause you a lot of problems. And I'm huge about reducing the friction. So of like how you're feeling and stuff like that, so you don't cause yourself any unnecessary pain or struggle when you're trying to do shit, right? So you want to reduce that friction, and the best way to do that is to optimize the sleep. And to optimize the sleep, you have to make sure that you're going to the bed consistently at the same time, waking up consistently at the same time. That not only sets your circadian rhythm, but then it's also building discipline. It's working the discipline muscles to be able to follow through with something that you've said you're going to do. And I always talk about the three pillars that I think are most important for you feeling your best, which is sleep is number one, diet is number two, and exercise. So you're going to see that a lot here, because those are all foundational things if you want to feel your best. And so, and like right here, exercise. So just make sure you're doing something to move your body each day. Like you'll hear all these people say, "Oh, you can't exercise every day." It's like that's bullshit. I exercise every day. The odd time I'll take a day off or something like that. And if I'm feeling sore or tired or something like that, then I'll just lower the intensity of what I'm doing. So I'm not going to go and just have a crazy lifting session or something like that if I'm super sore and tired, even though sometimes I do, because I want to do hard things and push myself to further than I think I can go, right? Because sometimes your body will be saying like, oh no, you gotta stop. But then one of the things that I've learned from Jocko Willing, he says when his body's giving them those indicators, tell yourself, okay, I'll rest tomorrow. And then so you have to give it a go today. And sometimes you can work through it. And then tomorrow you're like, I feel fine. Right. Because sometimes your body plays tricks on you. Like obviously you want to pay attention to different markers in your body. You don't want to burn yourself out, anything like that. But the body and mind can definitely go a lot further than most people give it credit for. And then the last one for my suggestions here is sticking to a diet, because again, we're just reducing that friction for you to be able to continue down this path of sobriety. And if you're eating like shit, you're eating processed food, all these seed oils, just sugary fucking crap, you're not going to feel good. So the suggestion here, and I would say pick any diet that you're going to be able to do over a long period of time. But what I would say that you get the most benefit out of is eliminating the processed foods in your diet and eating a whole food diet, right? So like what a whole food diet is, and if you've listened to my podcast previous, I talk about this all the time, because again, this is one of the pillars that I push all the time, because I think if you feel better, then it's going to make things a lot easier in the long run. So a whole food diet is just stuff with one ingredient. Like a steak is a steak, a carrot is a carrot, an apple is an apple, and so on. So just eat good stuff like that, because fuel for your body. If you're fucking pissing in your gas tank with this processed food, you're not going to make it too far, right? So you want to give it the premium octane and let's go, right? So these are ones I would recommend, especially if you're not used to setting goals and like having consistency and stuff like that. I would just start with these ones and just see how they go. Because like I said, once you build a habit of each of these ones, you can remove them off the list and add different ones. Like for me, I don't need to have exercise in here because I exercise every day, no matter like I don't need to have that on my power list. My power list now is geared towards different things like my business and stuff like that. So it's gonna, as you progress down your journey in sobriety, you're gonna be able to swap some of the stuff out and work on different goals and stuff that you're working on. So this isn't just for sobriety, but this is definitely a good place to start to build your foundation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about habit formation. I got this from the book Power to Habit by Charles Duhigg, and it's a really good book. I would recommend picking it up and having a read through it. And so with habit formation, the way habits are formed is you'll get a cue, which will cause you to do a routine, which will give you a reward. So the way that we change habits is we have the same cue, we change the routine, which is the habit that leads to the same reward. Okay. So an example would be a man gets home from a stressful day at work. That would be the cue. He pours himself a drink. That's the routine because he's stressed. So he needs a drink, routine. And then he does that so he can relax, which is the reward. So if we're using that example, instead of pouring himself a drink when he comes home after he's had a stressful day, you can choose something else that will also help him relax, to be able to swap out that routine because he's already got it ingrained in him, right? So it's easier to switch out a habit like that instead of just trying to create a whole new one, because you've already got the road work and the framework set for that, right? So as long as it's the same cue, I've had a stressful day, I get home, and then now we can take a look at different things that might reduce his stress and cause him to relax, which is the reward he's looking for. And this might be different. I'm just using this as an example. But now when we're looking at different things that could reduce the stress, things like exercise, breath work, engaging with the community, that kind of thing, talking to a friend, are all things that are on the power list, right? So then we can kind of use that and our knowledge with how habits are formed and how we can swap out bad habits for good habits, and use that to our advantage, right? So that's why I wanted to share this and kind of, and again, if you follow me for a long time, you've heard me talk on other podcasts and stuff like that about habit formation. I'm really diving deep into it because I know there's something here, and it's super important to know that the habit is the foundation for every single thing that we do. Even if you're not conscious of it, it's operating in the background, and everything you do, everything you say, and everything you think is because of a keystone habit or some sort of habit that you've accumulated over the course of your life. Okay, so that's why I wanted to share that. And then now we'll talk about building a support system. So what's a support system? It's a system that you can build that provides encouragement, advice, and just generally support for your sobriety journey. And this is like and you'll talk to anyone that's been in sobriety for a long period of time. Building your support network is super, super important when you're doing that, especially if you want to be sober for long periods of time. So you might find like you might even be stopping and like thinking to yourself like, okay, I've been trying to get sober for so long, but then you don't have a support system or you haven't built better habits for yourself or stuff like that, right? And then this might be clicking with you and you could get a lot of value out of this, right? Or if you're just getting sober or you were kind of thinking about it but you're not too sure, like all this stuff is going to be just different things you can put in your tool belt to be able to stay sober for long periods of time. And then it'll start snowballing because then you'll see all the benefits of all this stuff and you're like, oh, maybe that Andrew guy wasn't bullshitting, maybe he got 10 years of sobriety from doing some of this stuff, right? So support system is super important. And so a saying that I love, and it's super, super true, is you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around with most. And that's like, it's super true. And anything that I look at, like I'm looking at, like, if you see people operating at a high level, like successful people, they don't hang around like poor people and stuff like that, right? And I'm not to say that like if you don't have any money, you're a bad person. That's not to say that at all. It's just like if you're operating at a higher level, you're going to want to hang around other people that are the same, because if you don't, then you'll have somebody who's lazy or something like that kind of bringing bringing your level down, right? So just like anything, like that's why building a support system here is good. Going to things like AA and stuff like that, like getting around other people who are doing the same thing that you're doing, because it's like, okay, now you've got this community that you're able to lean back on when shit gets tough, right? So building your support system. So a couple of things that you can do, and I've mentioned a little bit already, going to AA. And I don't go to AA at all anymore. But in the beginning, it was absolutely crucial, I think, in my journey in sobriety. I don't think if I didn't go to AA, I don't know if I'd be sober today. I don't even know if I'd be alive today, to be honest with you. So whether you agree with it, whether or not, it doesn't matter. I would go there and just get around other people that are in the same situation as you. And then even if down the line, after you get your foundation in place and you've been sober for some time and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, hey, maybe this, I don't need this anymore, because you'll find some people that go to meetings for every single day for 20 years plus, right? Because they need that extra support. But for myself, I went for like 2 years. I didn't go every single day, but I went quite a bit, especially in the beginning. I went every day. Um, but after, I was just like, okay, well, I don't really need this support for myself. And I was away a lot as well, because when I was commercial crab fishing. But it's definitely the best place to start. And you can do this on Zoom. So if you're not able to find a place in your area, you can get on for online Zoom meetings as well. Another thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure to tell your friends and family exactly what you're doing and why. And this might be tough for you. It might be tough to admit to them that you had a problem. They might, like, other people in your family or close to you might have not even known that you were suffering or that you had a problem as bad as it was. I mean, for me, everyone around me knew that I had a problem, but you might not be to that. It might not be to that extent for you, and they're not seeing it. But whatever the case may be, you got to just make sure that everyone that's close to you, you let know that hey, I'm getting sober, I don't drink, so that way they're not putting you in any weird situations to tempt you or anything like that. And then I'm going to tell you something here that you're probably not going to want to hear. But if, say, you tell your family or you tell your friends that you're trying to get sober and they don't accept it and stuff like this, and it might just be in the beginning because they're shocked about it or whatever. Because I remember my mom, she was kind of stunned that I was stopping. She didn't even believe it. Because she's an alcoholic herself, so she didn't think that I had as bad of a problem as it actually was, and she didn't know the whole extent of it either. So, but then she kind of came around and it was all good, right? But she was just kind of stunned. So it might be the same kind of thing. But if they're not supporting you, then, like, I hate to say it, but you kind of got to get rid of them in your life, right? Because if you are expecting to make a change, um, with not drinking, but then you continue to hang around the same people, do the same things, and you're expecting a different result. And I keep saying about this too, because this always comes up in sobriety. It's the insanity of the addiction, right? So you got to let those people go. But bare minimum, you got to tell them and just be like, this is a problem for me. I'm fixing it. Support me. And if you don't, then sorry, but I got to minimize my contact with you. And so there's online communities as well. So, and I would do all this stuff. Like, I wouldn't just pick either or whatever. I try to do all this stuff. So another one is you can join an online community. And I found that the best communities for sobriety, like, I haven't went crazy and went all over the place, but I found some communities on Facebook that were really valuable. There's lots of them out there. I'm building a community on Facebook as well. And it'll be in the show notes. So if you want to go check that out too, it's something that I'm building because I want to be able to support more people. And I think it's a really good option. So another thing you can do is you can find a sponsor, sobriety coach, something like that, someone who can guide you and give you a framework to be able to follow so you can stay sober for long periods of time. And so you can find these people through like AA. It might be somebody that you know, that you've seen their content, something like that. Maybe you find them in a community on Facebook, anything like that. So those are some resources that you can use. So some of the benefits of your support system, and we've talked about some of this, but getting around like-minded people who are going through the same thing as you. Because what I found is when you're able to do that and you hear stories and experiences and stuff like this, then you're like thinking in your mind, like, okay, I'm not the only one. These people are thinking the same way that I am. They're struggling with the same shit that I am. And you can learn a lot from that. Leads us to this one. Learn from people who are ahead of you in their journey. So you can learn from their mistakes or different things that they've realized along their journey, kind of like what I'm doing here for you. So if you're listening to this, good on you. You're getting you're getting some experience explained to you from somebody who's been sober for over a decade, right? So I've had success being sober. All this stuff is stuff that I've used. I didn't use it from the beginning because I just didn't know, and it took me a long time to develop all this shit, and I had to struggle through it and all that kind of stuff. But make sure that you're learning, and you're learning every day about who you are, because this is one of the best things that I've gotten out of becoming sober is learning myself a lot more, like what I can do, what I can't do, my strengths, my weaknesses, all that kind of stuff. And then when you build a support system, because it's people that are going through the same shit that you're going through, and oftentimes that went through a lot harder shit, because if you go to AA and you listen to people's stories and stuff like that, you'll be like blown away at some of the shit that people have gone through. At least I was. And so it doesn't matter how hard you have it, there's always going to be somebody else that has it harder or has gone through more stuff. That doesn't mean that what you've gone through isn't important or isn't a big deal. But what that helped me is like, oh, hey, like if that person can do that and they're human and I'm also human, that means it's possible for me too. Right. So, and it's another place that you can not be judged, because again, these people went through the same shit, maybe even worse. And so they're not going to judge you like if you went and started talking to somebody who wasn't an alcoholic, doesn't know what you're going through, and you'd be more likely to be judged there. Right. So, and another thing is, it's a good place to get stuff off your chest. So if you're struggling with just talking through what you're struggling with can be super, super helpful. And I know it was for me, especially in the beginning. And then it's a good place to get advice when you're struggling, because again, these people have gone through what you're going through, and they might see something from a different angle that you're not quite seeing it at just yet in your journey. So you'll be able to either hear it through their stories, or you can like straight up, because you'll be in the community, whether it's an AA or you're in a Facebook group, you can make a post, whatever the case may be. You have access to different people that can give you advice to kind of help you get through anything that you're kind of going through. And then also, and I mentioned this before, but it's a reminder that you're not alone, right? Like you don't have to just isolate yourself and think that like, oh, I don't drink, I can't hang out with anyone or stuff like that, right? So getting sober is a lifestyle. It's not just something you do, right? So you're going to have to change a lot of stuff that you do and hang around different people and stuff like that. And so lots is going to change, but just don't feel like you have to isolate yourself and do all this stuff on your own. Because and then another thing is, when you go and you get in the community and you start engaging with the community, you'll never going to realize what you might say, how it could help somebody else. Because so many times I've heard stories, especially in AA, of something that's people have gone through, and it's just completely changed my mind. Like, because when I first was getting into AA, I actually thought that it was some sort of cult or something like that. So I didn't even want to go. But then I started going, and my intention when I first got into AA was to learn how to drink in moderation. But what happened to me, and I got to see this from a different perspective, and this is an example of learning from other people's mistakes and their stories, is person after person was saying that they had like 5, 10, 20 years of sobriety, and they figured like, oh, okay, I can just go out and just have a couple. And every single time when I heard a story like that, they went out, everything was fine for a little bit. Yeah, they can go out for a couple of drinks every now and again, and it would be fine. But then it progressively got worse and worse and worse, and then it was worse than it was when they first got sober. And I kept seeing that pattern over and over and over again. So it kind of told me like, okay, well, if all these stories that I hear lead to the same result, it's like, why would I expect to be the one different one? And maybe I could, but I'm not, like, for me personally, it's not worth the risk, because I'm not going to risk going out and then potentially dying. Like, that is a risk. And that's another thing, that being in these groups and stuff like this, I heard of so many different people who are struggling with getting sober and they kept relapsing, stuff like that. And some of them ended up dying. They either went out, relapsed, and then overdosed on other drugs, or they went out, relapsed, got drunk, and then like passed out and then froze to death, or something like that. So I've known of a few people that were even in my own AA group that happened to, right? So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And I didn't even like think of that when I first got in. So it's like, I see all that, I'm hearing all these stories, people are sharing their experience, and that caused me to be like, okay, I'm definitely not going to be drinking again. And I didn't, right? But then another thing too is like, relapsing is like very, very common. And I even, when I first was getting sober, it took me a bunch of times before it even stuck. So if you relapse, don't beat yourself up about it. Just get back on the journey, but just also remember that there is a risk involved when you go back out and you go back to drinking or using drugs or whatever the case may be. But that's all I got for you for that. But before we go, just remember to share this with somebody who needs it. Subscribe if you haven't, and let me know what your thoughts are on the episode. Like, are you liking these kind of slideshow style episodes, or you want me to go back to talking head? Whatever. Just give me your feedback. I'd love to hear it. And then another thing, just before we go here, is I put together a 14-day ultimate kickstart to sobriety, for people that weren't too sure where to start, or maybe they were already down this road, but they keep relapsing. They're not able to get it to stick. So I put this together, and it's free. It's 100% free. Just look in the show notes, and I'll make sure to leave a link to it. And then you just sign up, and then you'll get access to the PDF. And you can just go through that, and it goes through the power list that we've gone through, but it breaks it down in like days. So like, you'll be getting a new task each day, so it kind of builds up during the first week to get you your full 5 tasks, the ones that I suggested. And then after that, it's just a lot of reflection, and kind of making sure that you do the 5 tasks each day to be able to ingrate it and start building the habit. And then think about after, when you're done the 14 days, think about your future and like where things are going to go and like stuff like that. So that's just another resource that I wanted to put together for you guys, if you want it. And again, it's free. And as always, make sure you're taking action on this stuff, because like, if I'm just here talking and you're not doing anything with it, it's just like you're just listening for whatever reason, but then you're not taking action, then all this shit's useless, right? So I want you guys to go take action, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay sober, my friends.